Hello and welcome to the solutions video for the sample Excel interview questions. The questions were posted to simulate a typical Excel interview questions that candidates face during the course of their interviews. Many organizations have different ways by which they gauge their candidate competency with Excel, and they have different tests along the interview process to test for these skills. So, this set of questions are just set to mirror what a typical Excel interview looks like. The questions are designed to test the familiarity with Excel arithmetic functions. So, straight to the test. So these are just basic instructions before answering these questions in this Excel assessment. So the assessment is designed to test your familiarity with Excel arithmetic functions, as I already said. So the data we'll be working with in this assessment. So the transaction tree contains a year's sales record for a tech resale company. So questions are to be answered using the data in the transaction sheet. So these are the transactions by which would be, or this is where we'll be having our solutions to the questions asked in this assessment. So all questions are graded. So if the answers are correct, then the mark will be 10, else the mark will be 0. So these are the questions that need to be answered in this assessment. So, and to pass, you must score above 75% to any pass mark. So these questions or this set of questions are graded, which is a little bit dissimilar to what most people are faced with. So most times you get Excel interview or Excel questions, but you don't get to know if you've done the right thing or if not. So I try to put together some formulas to help you grade and search for correct answers and to allow you gauge whether you've reached the pass mark or not. So you are supposed to get 75% of this assessment before we can say that you've passed this assessment. So for an answer to be correct, an Excel function must be used to get the answers. Hard coded answers will not suffice. So like I said, we are testing your competency with Excel arithmetic function. So like for instance, if I say what is the average price in Naira of items sold, and I come here and I try to use maybe one method or the other to get the average price. Maybe I do this and then I have my average price here, and I just take this figure and punch it here. This will not correct. So I need to put in the formula that helps me calculate the average price for that. And this will get into in due time. So except for questions 1, 2, and 3 that requires answers directly on the transaction sheet, all other questions require single digit answers that must be provided on the corresponding cell in the question. So aside from question 1, 2, and 3 has to be answered directly in the transaction sheet, but all of this will get into. So let's just start. So question 1. So question 1 says we should calculate the revenue on column J for each corresponding transaction. So if I come to this question is set to test familiarity with Excel arithmetic functions. Basically it's just a simple multiplication of, so I'm supposed to get revenue in this column, and I have my quantity purchased and I have my price. So I can have a simple formula here that says equals to my quantity multiplied by my price. So if I hit enter, I'm going to have 16,320, right? There is another way I can do this. Let me delete this. I can say equals to the product. If I say the product of my first number, comma, and my second number, if I close this bracket and hit enter, I'm still going to have the same answer. So if I come here and I double click on the bottom right of this cell, or I drag down. Most people drag down, but this is a faster way because here we have about 5,685 records of or transactions, as you may like. If you want to drag like most people are used to. This might take a while, but because my data is clearly formatted, once I double click here, then I'm able to copy paste the formula down all the way to my last record transaction. Like if I choose, I can decide to select this column and then to format it with my comma separators, and I can reduce my decimals. So if I do this, so let's go and check on our questions if our answer is correct. Beautiful. So here I've got my 10 score, and then so far I have 6%. Wow, that's cool. So it means we're progressing. So here the instruction says, "Hey pal, you've not answered enough questions." Of course I know that. So let's just go to the second question. So my second question says, in column B, use a formula to determine the month name from each date in column A. So if I come here, in column A we have dates, individual dates of transactions, and in column B I want to extract the month of the date in. So I want to have, if this is 01/01/2019, so the second number here is supposed to be the month. I know one means January, so I just basically want to extract the month. So what I can do is to use a formula called text to extract it. So if I say equals to text, so text allows me to convert a value to a text in a specific number format. So text, what value do I want to convert? So I'll just choose this, right? So I say comma, and then format text. How do I want to format it? So I'm going to open a parenthesis, and then I want to format this in MMM. So MMM means I'm formatting this in month. So if I want to extract the date, I only need to put DD. If I'm formatting in month, I only need to put, if I do MM, it's going to return 01. But if I do MMM, it's going to return Jan. But if I do, okay, let me just try that. So if I close this quotes and I close this bracket and I hit enter, so it returns Jan, right? We actually want January, so I need to add one more M here, right? And then I'm good. Let me increase the screen a little. So this is it. So the formula is text A2, and then I'm formatting this in month. All right. In the same vein, if I want to extract the years, I only need to replace my MMM with YY, and then if I say enter, can you see I've been able to extract the year, which is 2019. All right. If I say YY, I'm going to have 19. All right, because I just want to specified two digits. But if I put 4 digits, it means I'm expecting like the full year. So right, what I want here is MMMM for that. So I have my January. If I double click at the bottom right, then I've been able to extract my month. So let's check if our formula is correct. Let's check when the months switched from January to February and see that we are correct. Beautiful. So this is it. So if you take a look at what happened here, this is 31st of January 2019, and I have here January, and then when the date switched to 1st of February, then this switched to February, which means that my answer is correct. So let's go back to questions and see. Beautiful. So here I've scored 10 marks for that. So this there are formulas here that gauges straight from as you are entering, or as you are typing in your formulas in the transaction sheet. The formulas here can go there and pick and confirm if you've done the correct thing. So I've got 10 marks here, which means that what I've supplied is the correct answer. So beautiful. Let's move on. So in my third question, it says using the exchange rate in cell O1, get the respective revenue amount in dollars in column K. And then there's a tip here that says cell O1 must be referenced in your formula. So what is this trying to say? Let's go here. So let me go back up. So there is a dollar rate here. There's a dollar rate of 365 here. right? And I want to have my revenue in Naira, and I want to get my revenue in dollars, right? Now, what most people will do is, because I have 365 here and they know that the conversion rate is 365, so someone might be tempted to say equals to, I choose the revenue and then I divide by 365, right? And then I have my amount in dollars. But this is not what the formula wants, or this is not how is the best way to approach this kind of solution or this kind of questions. Because what happens, you want to build your formulas to be dynamic in the sense that if this value changes tomorrow, if 365 changes to 369 or 375, you are able to, because dollar is something that, or dollar values against the naira is something that changes regularly. So this formula is supposed to automatically update, but because you've hard coded 365, and let's even double click, let's drag this down and see. So even though this solution is correct, but it's not the best way to approach this kind of question. So what I'm supposed to do is to reference this cell in my formulas in such a way that when this value changes, then my answers or my revenue amount in dollars will still change. So let me delete this and then I'll take it again. So what I want to do is to say equals to this amount, then divided by cell O1, right? This is correct. So I can hit enter. But then again, if I try to drag down my formulas, I'm getting an error. Why am I getting this error? So let me double click on this for you to understand why I'm getting this error. So if I double click on this, because I've dragged down my formula by a cell, this has also Excel relative reference has also increased by one row. If I come here, because I've increased my I've scrolled down by about 9 or 10 rows. Excel relative reference has also scrolled down my cell O1 by 10 rows. Now, this is what they call the Excel's relative reference. What I actually want to do is to use an absolute reference such that even though I move down by 1 row or 10 rows or 100 rows, I'm still absolutely referencing my 365. So what I'm going to do is to delete all of this. So let me come back here and say I'm still going to write the same. I'm going to rewrite the same formula. So equals to my revenue divided by my 365, right? This is O1. So I need to do one simple trick now that allows me to absolutely reference this, and which is to use a function called absolute reference. So I need to hold if I'm using, so I need to hold the F4 key, my F4 key, and I'm going to have something that looks like a dollar sign in front of the alphabet and the numbers. Because I'm using, so there are some systems, or there are some operating systems you need to have to hold the function and the F4 keys, or depending on the version of Excel you're using. So but for me, I'm going to use function F4. When I've done that, if we see what happened here, I've had something that looks like a dollar in front of my alphabet and dollar in front of my number. What this means is that my column, which is column O, has been locked from moving. Just imagine this dollar as a key, and then my row 1 has been locked, which means that I've locked my row and I've locked my column. So even if I drag down, this is not going to relatively move with me. There are also other ways, a mixed reference, whereby you can leave the row to go, or you can lock the row alone and leave the column, or you can lock the column and leave the row, but we won't be treating that here. So this I've done, and I'm going to say enter. We can also, it's also possible, let me delete this, to manually type this in. So you can actually say $O and 1. This will still perform the same function. So I've hit my enter key, and then if I drag down now, I can see that my value. So if I come here and I double click here, we can see that even though I've moved 3 rows below, my O1, my cell O1 is still being referenced. This is what we call the Excel absolute reference, and this is where the magic happens. So if tomorrow I come here and then dollar changes to 407, keep an eye on this figure. Once I hit enter, all of this figure changes. So that is the beauty about using absolute referencing. We can also use this in VAT calculation, in profit margin calculation, in interest calculation, in so many other applications that we can use the Excel absolute reference, such that when a value is kept constant, or a cell is kept constant while other values are changing. So I'm going to take this back to 365, and I'm going to hit enter. You can see that my values of the revenue amount in dollars are changing. So let's go back to my questions. Beautiful. I've gotten that also. I've gotten a 10. So this says you've still not answered enough questions, but fine. I can console myself with the fact that I've gotten 3 questions correctly and I'm on 19%. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says, what is the average price in Naira of items sold? If I come to transactions and I come here, so I just want to know what is the average price of what is the average price of my items. So if I come back to the question, so here I need to input my answer here. So the formula is just average. So the formula for calculating average on Excel is just average. I mean, I think that makes sense. So equals to average. So if I double click this, I want to know, I can decide to input this number as one after the other, but that's going to take me forever. So I just come while I'm supposed to add the functions or the parameters for this argument, or the arguments for these functions. I can just come to transaction. I can see that I'm still being referenced. So this is saying average transaction. What do I want to know? I want to select from I2, and then I want to select all the way down. I'm going to hold Control Shift down to select all the values. Yes, and I'm going to close the bracket, and I'm going to say enter. So I've been able to get my average to be 22,890, which means that my average price of items in Naira is 22,890. However, if you're writing a formula like this, you have to be very careful, because let's assume this transaction is increasing by the day or by the hour or by the minute. Because I've restricted this average to row 5685, which is my last record of transaction. So if I come here, my last record is 5685, which means that if someone adds any other new record here, this will not be averaged, so this will not be included in the average record. So what is cool, or what is a good thing to do, is to actually reference the entire column in my argument. So I can come back here and say, what do I want to do? I want to average the whole of column I, which is my prices, right? And then I can close this bracket. Even though this will give me the same answer, but when that transaction increases tomorrow, I'm still going to capture the new rows in my argument. I hope that makes sense. So I've answered this, so I have a 10 marks for that, which means that my answers are correct. So let me try what I said the other time, that this has to be a function. So if I know here that if I know that my answer to this is 22,890, and I just come here and say 22,890, this one I'm hard coding the answer. If I click enter, my answer still says 0. Why is this? Because the argument or the function here is supposed to test that what you've inputted here is actually a formula and not just an answer that you've typed in. I hope that makes sense. So let me go back to what I had before. So this I've done Ctrl Z, and I'm back at my formula. So 22,890, and then I've got 10 marks. So the next question is, what is the maximum quantity of single item? What is the maximum quantity of a single item ordered? So if I come here, let me go back up. So these are my quantities. So I want to know what is the maximum quantity of an item that was ordered. So how many item, or what is the max item? So the formula that allows us to calculate this in Excel is the Excel max function. There's also a min function that helps you calculate what is the minimum of so we can use this maximum or max function for date, we can use it for year, we can use it for figures or numbers, as the case may be, to calculate for different. So I want to know what the maximum quantity of a single item order. So I can come here and say equals to max. If I open my bracket, so max says the same argument, put in the numbers. You can check the max between two. So if I say I want to check the max between 10, 20, and I close this bracket and says enter, I'm going to get 20 because 20 is the max of those two arguments. But I want to use this in a range. So I'll go to transaction and say I want to check the max of quantity. So I'm going to click the whole of quantity, right? Which is the whole of column H. I'm going to close this bracket and I'm going to say enter. So the maximum item that was ordered, or the maximum quantity, is 10. So nobody ever bought 11 units of a single item at a go. So the maximum anybody ever bought was 10 units of items, right? So that's correct. So the next question is, how many transactions in total are there in the data set? So here what this just wants us to answer is how many transactions happened here in the total, or in this what's it called, in this, how many transactions did this store or this company record. So let me go back to my questions. The formula I'm going to use here is the count function. So I want to count, so I'm going to say equals to count, right? So if I open my bracket, what I want to count is to come here, and then I want to count, I can either count my quantity, I can count my prices, I can count any numbers basically. So I can count, let me say I want to count quantity. So it's just going to count units or singular appearances or occurrences of all of this. So if I do Control Shift down, let me also, okay, Control Shift down, and I close bracket and I hit enter. So it says that in this there are 5,684 transactions, all right? So that works. There are also situations whereby you don't want to count numbers, you want to count text. So there's another way to make this work, is to use the count a function. The count a function, so let's compare the count and the count a function. The count functions allows you to count the numbers of cells in a range that contains numbers. Now, but the count a function allows you to count the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So this one counts, the count a function counts both text and then numbers. I'm just putting it here just in case someone needs it. We are still going to get the same answers, but let me just use the count a function. So the count a function, if I come here to transactions, so the count a function is going to count all cells that are not empty. So I can choose a random cell here. Let me choose a random, let me start from here. Let me just choose random and do Control Shift down. Control Shift down, so I've selected, I can close my bracket and I can hit enter. So I'm still going to have 5684, right? So which means that I'm correct in that. Now it says, the next question number 7 says, using the condition, now let me see my score, I'm on 38%. Wow. All right, so using conditional count functions, how many transactions were recorded in the following regions? So I want to know how many, a conditional count function. So I'm supposed to know how many transactions occurred in the east and how many transactions were recorded in the west. So if I come to my transaction sheet, if I come here, as you can see, we have east. The two regions I have here are east and west. So I want to see how many transactions were recorded in the east and how many transactions were recorded in the west. So we can use a conditional count function which is called COUNTIF. So COUNTIF allows you to specify an argument. So let me just say equals to COUNTIF. So COUNTIF counts the numbers of cells within a range that meets the given condition. So COUNTIF allows you to count some cells within a range that meets a particular criteria that you want to. There's also COUNTIF where you can specify more than one criteria, but what I want here is that allows us to count one. Is it criterion or criteria now? I'll leave you to decide which is the correct one. All right, so range. So what is my range? What is the range of items I want? So I want to the range I want to count, or the range I want to count is east, right? I want to count Control Shift down. All right, I want to count this. I'm going to say comma, then after comma, so it's asking me the next argument is what is my what is my criteria. My criteria is east, so I'm saying go and count that sheet, or go and count the values in that rows that meet this particular criteria, and the criteria I want is that are east. So I want you to go and count how many transactions or how many entries are there that are east. So if I close this bracket and I hit enter, I'm going to have 3589. So there are 3589 transactions that what there are 3589 transactions that meet this is criteria. And also, if you want to make this dynamic, just like I said, you can remove all of this and just replace it with what, and just select the entire column, and I say enter. So I'm still going to get my answer. Now the beautiful part is that after calculating for east, once I drag this down, my criteria shift from east to west, so I've gotten my answer. So the same thing what happened here, I don't need to repeat the same formula here because I already have my east and my west. So my criteria is here, and then this is another criteria, and then once my answer is here, or once I've entered the formula for this and I drag down, I'm able to get my second answer. So that's beautiful. So let's just move to the next question. Now the next question has 8 answers in one. So using the conditional sum function, calculate the total revenue in Naira in the following locations. Total revenue in Naira. To do this, I need to use the function called SUMIF function. So I want to calculate the sum or the revenue. I want to calculate the revenue on this column that meets by all of these locations. So I want to know what is the revenue in New Jersey, what is the revenue in Connecticut, what is the revenue in California, and all of that. So if SUMIF functions allows me to do that. So if I come here, I can say equals to SUMIF. So SUMIF adds the cell specified by a given condition or criteria. So let me open my bracket. So what is the range? Now this is somewhat confusing. Some people confuse between the range and the sum range. So the range is actually the range of cells that contain your criteria itself, and then the sum range contains the range of cells that has the exact figures you want to add. This I will explain. So the range, what is my range? If I come to transaction, this is actually my range, the range that has the criteria that I want to sum, right? So this is it. So I'll start from New Jersey all the way. I can do Control Shift down, but I really just want to select the whole of column D, right? So this is the range I want to count, and I say comma. Now what is the criteria? My criteria that anyone that meets this criteria, New Jersey. So I'm going to click on this New Jersey. So I want to count, and I want to sum the revenue for New Jersey. So I'm going to say comma. Now the next so I'm going to say comma, the next argument is the sum range. So the sum range is this. So this is the revenue itself that I want to sum. So I'm going to click on column J also. So as you can see, so this is the range. The location is the range. The criteria are the New Jersey, the Connecticut, and New York that we specified, and then this is the range that we want to sum. So if I close this bracket and hit enter, so I have my answer to be 98,508,380. So I've gotten this to be 10. Now the beautiful thing is I don't have to repeat this formula in all the remaining cells because the arguments are somewhat similar. So if I drag this down one step and I double click here, what happens is that because I've dragged it down one step, I've also my criteria or my range, my criteria has also moved by one step downward. So this I'm able to build a formula that works. So if I scroll all the way down, I can see that I have 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, which means that all of these answers I've supplied are correct. So beautiful, my score is 100, and then I have a beautiful remark here that says congratulations champ, your Excel skills are on fleek. All right, so that marks the end of this solutions video. You can also download the exercise files below, and you can walk along with it. If you have any questions you would like me to answer regarding this or any other Excel related questions, you can always direct them to me. Kindly follow this handle, and thank you very much.